What if the best time to travel is not the time everyone else has already chosen? Every destination has a version of itself that the brochure shows you, and then it has the version that reveals itself when you arrive in the right season, at the right tempo, with enough knowledge to know why your surroundings matter. The best travel destinations in the world are not fixed points on a map. They are moving targets, shaped by light and rainfall, by harvest calendars and migration patterns, by the particular quality of a morning in March that only locals have ever thought to notice. This is not a ranking, but a travel calendar, built around value, meaning, and the kind of information that changes how a trip feels before you have even left home. 12 months, 24 destinations, one guiding principle. Our curated look at the right place at the right time. What does January in Portugal ask of a traveler who has only ever arrived in summer? The Alfama district in the early morning carries the smell of bread from bakeries that have been opening before dawn for generations. The fado that drifts from the doorways of small restaurants is not performed for tourists and represents the continued tradition of sound, emotion, and connection, while also sharing what January in Lisbon traditionally sounds like. The Douro Valley to the north is draped in mist. The vineyards strip back to their bare architecture, and the wine being poured is young and unhurried. Shoulder season done through intimate access in a city that has not yet remembered to put on its public face asks you to slow down and enjoy. January turns South Africa's bush into a nursery for newborn animals. The high summer in Kruger National Park is one of its most biologically active periods of the year, which means predators are focused, and game drives carry a particular tension that the dry season cannot replicate. Further south, the Cape winelands around Stellenbosch are lush from recent rains, the air carrying the mineral weight of a landscape that has just been thoroughly soaked. The crowds that descend in the European and American summer are months away. What remains is the place itself. February in Venice is the only month in which the city feels genuinely reclaimed. Carnevale fills the Cali with the sound of masks and movement, not the packaged performance of high summer, but something older and more unsettling, rooted in a tradition that predates the Republic. The air is cold and damp, the kind of cold that makes the warmth of a Bacaro and a glass of Prosecco feel earned. In the Piedmont region to the northwest, truffle season reaches its final weeks, and the pairing of fresh shavings over tallarin pasta with a Barolo poured from a bottle that has been held back for exactly this type of moment is the kind of meal that becomes the organizing memory of your trip. The Great Barrier Reef is at its calmest and clearest in February, giving you reason to celebrate Australia in the Southern Hemisphere's late summer. The water temperature sits in the low 80s, the visibility extending deep enough to make the reef feel less like an ecosystem and more like a cathedral. In Tasmania, the overland track is alive with wildflowers at lower elevations, and the air carries the particular sharpness of eucalyptus after a recent shower. Australia in February rewards travelers who understand that the Southern Hemisphere runs on the opposite seasonal patterns from what Northern Hemisphere itineraries are built around. How does March in Morocco reward the patient traveler? The almond trees are in full blossom above Ouarzazate. In Marrakesh, the Gemma El Fna wakes up in spring. The smoke from the food stalls mixes with floral aromas in the evening air, and the square has not been compressed by the volume of summer arrivals. The Sahara to the south is accessible and not yet punishing. The dunes hold the warmth of the day long into the night. This is shoulder season travel at its most persuasive, with the infrastructure of a fully operational destination without the density that often changes during more crowded summer months. As the Pantanal's floodwaters recede in March, marking the edge of the Southern Hemisphere's summer, they leave behind the reason wildlife photographers book months in advance: jaguar sightings that rank among the most reliable on the continent. In Bahia to the northeast, the beaches are warm and the cultural energy is still carrying the momentum of Carnival. The cacao farms of the southern Bahian coast offer something genuinely rare, with the full arc of chocolate from pod to finished product, guided by producers who have been working this land. Wet limestone, wild garlic rising from the hedgerows, the first warmth the soil releases after a long winter. The Cotswolds in April represent the best of the United Kingdom in spring. The bluebell woods around Chipping Campden and the Wye Valley are at peak bloom, and walking through them means moving through a fragrance that is simultaneously sweet and green and faintly medicinal. The paths are soft underfoot, the stone walls damp to the touch. Edinburgh in April is cold and clear, the wind off the Firth of Forth carrying a sharpness that makes the whiskey in a Grassmarket bar taste like an argument that has been definitively won. The Okavango Delta in April represents the green season at its most vivid. The floodwaters from Angola's highlands are beginning to arrive through the papyrus channels, and the delta is loud with bird life. The calls of fish eagles and the splash of hippos moving through the channels that were dry ground 3 weeks ago. The traditional Mokoro dugout canoe moves through this landscape with a silence that a motorized boat cannot approximate. The only sound, the dip of the pole, and the particular rustle of the papyrus as it parts. Experienced travelers to Greece tend to protect May as a personal secret. The Aegean is warm enough to swim, but the beaches have not yet compressed into the configurations of July, and the wildflowers that cover the hillsides of Santorini and the interior of Crete carry a smell of wild thyme, oregano, something faintly resinous that disappears entirely by midsummer. The Acropolis in May receives a quality of morning light that the midday heat of August eliminates, and the tavernas that line the back streets of Athens are still cooking for locals rather than managing volume. The best time to visit Greece is a question with a defensible answer. For travelers who prioritize depth over peak season spectacle, May is that answer. Both coasts are in favorable conditions for travelers who visit Sri Lanka in May. The month marks the beginning of the dry season on Sri Lanka's east coast and the continuation of favorable conditions in the south. The train journey through the tea hills of the Central Highlands, from Kandy toward Ella, is one of the great rail experiences in the world, not for any designed amenity, but for the unfolding quality of the landscape outside the window. The hill station air carries a coolness that the coast does not, and the leopards of Yala National Park are active and visible in the dry scrub. Off the southern coast, blue whale sightings near Marissa are among the most reliable on Earth during this window. The Inca Trail opens in Peru as June starts the dry season window. The path to Machu Picchu carries the smell of pine resin and high-altitude grass, the air thin enough to notice, but not punishing. And the ruins at the end of the 4-day walk arrive with an earned weight. In Cusco, the Winter Solstice Festival of Inti Raymi draws the Andean calendar into sharp focus. This is a living cultural event with roots that predate the Spanish arrival, and watching it from the terraces of Sacsayhuaman with the city spread below is the kind of moment that reframes what the words travel destination are capable of meaning. The midnight sun and the experience of it is genuinely disorienting, making Norway in June an experience specific to this place and time. The light at 11 at night carries the quality of late afternoon, warm and lateral, and the body's relationship to time begins to loosen in a way that feels like the early stages of a unique kind of rest. Kayaking the Hardangerfjord or hiking to Trolltunga in this light produces a silence broken only by water and wind. The Lofoten Islands to the north offer cliffs populated by sea eagles and puffins, and the fishing villages smell of drying cod and salt air in a way that connects the present moment to something very old. The Remarkables mountain range above Queenstown carries the kind of powder snow that draws skiers from the northern hemisphere, specifically because the season runs in reverse, making July a midwinter getaway in New Zealand. The ski fields are quieter than their European equivalents, the lift line shorter, and the landscape visible from the upper slopes. Queenstown below, Lake Wakatipu extending south. At Milford Sound in Fiordland, the winter rainfall fills the temporary waterfalls that cascade down the cliff faces, and the mist that sits over the fjord in the morning carries a cold that is not uncomfortable so much as clarifying. The dry season makes July the month to visit Colombia. The coffee region and the Zona Cafetera around Salento reward slow travel. The coffee farms here operate at altitude, and the morning ritual of the first cup, brewed from beans that were on the tree 72 hours ago, with the valley still in mist below, is one of those travel experiences that resists description. In Cartagena to the north, the walled city in July is warm, but not oppressive. The smell of sea air mixing with the frangipani that grows over the colonial walls, and the evenings carry a looseness that the city's history and architecture make feel particularly earned. August is the last generous month before Iceland contracts toward winter. Vatnajökull, Europe's largest glacier, can be walked on with crampons and a guide. The surface a blue-white that produces no equivalent color reference. The puffin colonies on the Vestmannaeyjar Islands are at the tail end of their season, which means the birds are still present, but the visitor volume has not peaked. In Reykjavik, the nights are beginning to darken again after months of continuous light, and the first hints of the aurora appear at the edge of the sky around midnight for those who stay awake to look. No wildlife documentary fully conveys the sound of the Masai Mara crossings taking place in Kenya in August. The churning of the water, the calls of the animals, the particular collective tension of a herd decision being made in real time. This is one of the great wildlife experiences on Earth, and August is the month in which to witness its climax. At Amboseli to the south, the elephant herds move through dust that the afternoon light turns gold, and the mountain beyond them, when the clouds lift, is one of the most photographed views in Africa for reasons that are entirely justified. The summer crowds have receded, the light has gone golden, and Copenhagen in September becomes the city it most wants to be, with the restaurant culture at full intensity. The Nordic foraging tradition finds its seasonal peak in September, with mushrooms and berries appearing in menus across the city in preparations that connect contemporary Danish cooking to the landscape that surrounds it. Cycling through Nyhavn or along the harbor in this light and at this temperature is the kind of experience that makes the concept of the perfect travel day feel genuinely achievable rather than aspirational. September in the Galápagos sits at the intersection of two seasons. The warm current has begun to shift, the water temperature dropping slightly, and the hammerhead sharks that gather off the northern islands of Darwin and Wolf are at their most concentrated and reliably visible. The islands themselves carry a silence and a scale that the word wildlife destination does not prepare you for. The animals have no evolutionary reason to move away from you, and the ethical weight of that proximity, the sense that you have been trusted with access to something genuinely intact, arrives slowly and stays. On the mainland, the Otavalo Indigenous Market offers one of the most authentic craft traditions in South America, the textiles carrying color combinations that have been refined over centuries. The Japanese have a word for the seasonal ritual of pursuing autumn color, momijigari. When visiting Japan in October, maple leaf hunting is a genuine seasonal ritual rather than a tourist activity, and joining it means sharing space with locals who are there for the same reason you are, to witness something that lasts only days in any given location before the leaves fall without the crowds or fanfare of cherry blossom season. The Higashiyama district of Kyoto in October smells of wood smoke and pine, the stone pathways damp from recent rain, and the ryokan culture of the area offers a specific quality of hospitality with the precision of the kaiseki meal, the temperature of the bath, and the weight of the yukata that aligns perfectly with what this season asks of you. The monsoon has just finished reworking the Rajasthani landscape, and the version that emerges is greener and more complex than the dry season's ochre, proving why October in India is a superb time to visit. The camel routes through the Thar Desert carry a cool that the January visitor does not experience. This is the desert in transition, and the light on the sandstone forts of Jaisalmer and Jodhpur in October has a warmth that justifies every photograph ever taken of them. The Taj Mahal at dawn in October, seen from the riverbank rather than the main gate, in the air that is clear rather than hazy, is the version of that monument that the postcards are based on, but rarely deliver. Cappadocia is one of the most persuasive arguments for shoulder season travel that exists when visiting in November. The hot air balloon flights over the rock formations at dawn operate in calmer wind conditions than the peak summer months, the landscape below carrying the last of the autumn color before winter arrives. The smell of the morning before a balloon flight, cold air, volcanic dust, the faint sweetness of the propane burners is one of those sensory signatures that attaches itself permanently to your memory. In Istanbul, November means the Grand Bazaar operating at full scale, the spice market fragrant with sumac and dried chili, and the particular heat of a tea glass warming your cold hands. November in Patagonia is the beginning of spring, and the landscape responds with an immediacy that nears theatrical. The wind is still present and formidable, but the wildflowers along the trails of Torres del Paine are emerging through grass that was frost-covered a month ago. The tango scene in Buenos Aires in November operates at a tempo that the summer visitor does not encounter, with the milongas in the Palermo and San Telmo neighborhoods, attended primarily by people who are there to dance rather than to observe. The distinction between those two modes of engagement is the difference between a cultural experience and a performance. The Christmas markets of Strasbourg, France, have been running in some form since the 15th century, and December in Alsace is when the concept proves its origins. The air fills with the aromas of vin chaud, mulled wine, star anise, cinnamon, and orange peel, carried in the cold along the cobblestone streets lined with half-timbered buildings. In the Périgord to the southwest, black truffle season begins in earnest in December, and a meal built around fresh truffle shaved over scrambled eggs or buried in a roast chicken or folded into a warm brioche is a culinary encounter that recognizes your understanding of what food is capable of. Within hours of landing in Thailand in December, the air changes. The humidity of the wet season lifts, and the mornings carry a freshness the rest of the year does not. The Loy Krathong festival falls in the latter part of the year, depending on the lunar calendar, and in Chiang Mai, it takes the form of the Yiping Lantern Release, which is among the most visually extraordinary events in Southeast Asian travel. Thousands of paper lanterns are released simultaneously into a night sky that they gradually fill with drifting light. Every month on this calendar holds two destinations that reward the traveler who chose them for reasons beyond availability and weather. The information exists. The access exists. What bridges the gap between a good trip and the one you will still be describing 10 years from now is the quality of the planning that preceded it. This is the Sikasso Edit. Subscribe for more or visit the link below to begin designing your journey with a specialist who already knows which month best fits your expectations and interests.